Welcome back once again, viewers. This is Media Track, episode 16, where we look at the news and what's happening around the state of Goa. I'm Frederick Noronha, and with me is Devika Sequeira, who will take you to the lead story of this week, and I'm sure you have no doubts what that story is going to be.
Thank you, Frederick. So obviously the story to start with this week is the ship that has been stranded virtually just 800 meters away from the shoreline at Miramar, at Dona Paula, which is the small fishing village of Marivel. In fact, I live just next door to that. It's called La Marvel. But the ship has been there for quite a few days, and this week was crucial for them to start lifting pumping out the naphtha. But
we saw the photos you had shared with us right from your house.
That's true. It is like just 700, 800 meters from our house, and we can see it from our balcony. So there was this little bit of an accident yesterday when the helicopters, the naval helicopters, tried to airlift, sort of airdrop the hydraulic pump for pumping out the naphtha, and the pump fell into the water. And so now, one doesn't know when the whole exercise will actually get going, but Times of India had a report.
But just for those who maybe have not caught up on the issue, basically during the last inclement weather that we've had, this ship suspected to be of Pakistani dispatch, which is carrying naphtha and got stuck on the shore without any crew on it.
Yeah, so it actually arrived in MPT in July, and the whole procedure got delayed, not for any other reason, but Times of India has a story, and it talks about the delay being from the side of the customs. So the naphtha, they tried getting permission for naphtha to be removed. So the ship actually came to MPT for repairs, and naphtha was the fuel in it, and it was rejected by the port in Bombay, and so it arrived in Goa, and then it was asked to move out of Anchorage and to the outer harbour because there was a cruise liner coming. So when it moved out to outer harbour, the shipping ministry warned them that the anchor is very weak, and but the MPT didn't bother too much about it, and so there was all that inclement weather, and so the ship just drifted towards Dona Paula, and now it's stuck at the rocks. So the whole thing is, the chief minister has been saying. In fact, I spoke to him on the phone, and he told me that don't worry, this whole procedure will be over very soon. In 2-3 days, we'll have the naphtha pumped out. They'll have these 2-3 other small vessels coming and taking away the naphtha. Once the naphtha is out, then there is no threat to the environment or the people, etc., to marine life. But the Times of India now talks of it's going to take 15 days, and there's 2,400 tons of naphtha in the ship. It's a chemical which is highly inflammable, and according to Professor Joe D'Souza, he's a biologist, I think, microbiologist. He says it's extremely it can cause rashes and so on. But there are many layers to this story. One is, why did the customs take 3 months to give them permission, and then they gave them permission within a day when everything became, it turned into an emergency situation. And the Congress also has been making these allegations that there's the BJP MLA is somehow from Vasco, Milind Naik, is somehow involved. So they've alleged that the BJP MLA would have made 15 crore in selling the naphtha because he had promised to actually do the work for them, and then when the whole thing became a real mess, he just sort of withdrew, and one doesn't know so many different stories to this. You were saying the ship came from Pakistan.
Yeah, there was some connection, some mention of it.
Okay, but now the talk is that the naphtha is going to be shipped to Saudi.
I see.
So who are these people? And
Very strong sense of deja vu, Devika, because in the past we've had similar instances.
exactly, yeah,
Where the sea transporter, River Princess, I remember these names very clearly.
yeah,
Because in 94 or 95 on that World Environment Day, June 5th storm,
yeah.
mini cyclone that came and hit us. We were young reporters then, and I think sea transporter got caught up very close to the Taj in Aguada.
Yeah, the River Princess, if I'm not mistaken, Frederick was stuck there for probably 10 years, or
Correct,
was it
right,
more
right,
than 10
right.
years?
It was about that period. So that's of Kandoli, but this is of Aguada, a little bit
Yeah.
further.
Okay.
And there again there was fuel on board. So I remember every drop, every liter that was being pumped out, like it was being watched so carefully, because the fear was that something would happen to the ship.
Yeah,
you
and
would
then
have
it
a
took years to
marine disaster, yeah.
salvage that vessel, if you recall, and it caused a lot of damage to the coastline.
The River Princess.
Yeah, but then the Goan has another story where they talk of contingency plan needed to tackle abandoned ships, and they are also mentioning two other vessels that were abandoned. MQ King, which was abandoned from 2016 to 2019. And the ship of the Sahara group arrived in the Western India shipyard, whatever, and it contained 3,000 metric tons of fuel, and that was stuck for some 3 years. And then there was this MV Pratibha Bhima, which was stuck from 2012 to 2014. So obviously Goa is very ill-equipped to tackle such a situation, and the question being asked of the Chief Minister is, who's going to pay for all this salvage operation thing? And he says that let's not talk about that right now. Right now my concern is to take out the NAFTA and see that one can sort of after that refloat the vessel and take it away. But there's already talk that there is a crack in the hull of the vessel, so I don't know how easy it's going to be for them to pull this out.
From one environmental story to another, if I can just mention this, the debate over the marina at Naushi, which is very close again, has also been taking a new lease of life in the social media.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
while our colleague and ex-editor Ashwin Tombat has defended the marina plans, there are some other groups like this Bharatiya Mukti blogspot.com, which is Sebi Fernandez's group.
Yeah.
And they have come by with a point-by-point refutation of Ashwin's arguments.
Okay.
And Ashwin has made 5 or 6 or 7 major arguments, and these guys have refuted each and every point. So it depends how you see the glass as half empty or half full. And while Ashwin is quite optimistic, and he says Europe has more than 4,000 marinas with 5 lakh berths, but still the waters there are healthier than Goa waters. Of course, there's no cause and effect relationship, no? So if in spite of the marinas the waters are healthy, doesn't mean to say the waters will be healthy if you have marinas.
Yeah, but the main issue here is not only that. It's not the maintenance of the marinas. It's the whole front portion of those islands. That coastline. There's Naushi. Then you have Kakra and Orshal. They'll be blocked off by the marinas, and this is what the fishermen are really protesting. So there were, this week there were hundreds at Naushi on the beach. You can see the protest if you go to the Goan. They have very good coverage of it. Yeah. And they got a very good turnout. Of course, the opposition parties are going to make capital of it, and you had Congress and Girish Chodankar on the beach, and what they are now demanding is that MPT jurisdiction over that whole part of the coastline be denotified, and they don't want the central government. But by the way, Frederick, this issue of this marina has been going on for 10 years. And it was there under Parikar, and Parikar himself had actually turned it down. He didn't think it was a good, but again it seems to have been revived.
That's true, and the areas it's affecting are basically Naushi, Kakra, Siridao, Bamboli and Odshell.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting is that again in this debate which is going on online at Bharat Mukti blogspot, they point out that the Goa State Biodiversity Board, GSBB, had decided against a Sankwal Marina that was slightly some distance away, Sankwal Marina, in 2013.
Yeah.
So, these projects, someone wants to bring them in and they keep pushing them, and there's a big
Exactly. There are so many private interests involved, one doesn't know who it is. This is a construction company. From what I can see, it doesn't have any sort of expertise in building marinas, at least from the papers I've read. So one doesn't know how they get the contract and who's behind all this.
Your next story.
Yeah, so the next story I was wanting to focus on, of course, is Michael Lobo's trip to Oslo, where he's signing some MOUs for new plants. So the Goan had a very interesting story, and they talked of it was done by this young reporter. So she says that Lobo. Her name is Alia Abreu. So she says that Lobo and team in Oslo, when answer to Goa's garbage management lies within India. So she's taken, Claude Alvarez of Goa Foundation. He'd put up this post in Facebook. So she's actually followed on that post, and she's reported on what Claude had to say. Now, Michael Lobo, who is Waste Management Corporation MD, has taken this whole team with him. It includes Levinson Martins. Actually, Michael Lobo is the minister. Levinson Martins is the MD. Then Goa State Pollution Control Board, Environment Engineer Sanjeev Joglekar. Plus, he's taken some media people. Who are, one might ask, why should the media be following?
So there was a lot of criticism on the Facebook groups around the plant, which pointed to these journalists going themselves and said that, this is a real kind of conflict of interest.
It is a PR exercise. They're going to report
and even in the last trip when Parikar and company had gone, we had taken journalists, and I remember when the plant was stinking, some of the people who remembered that were actually cursing the journalist and saying that, what is this now, call them here and they should be answerable, because getting convinced is easy, especially when you have all the goodies thrown in. So.
Yeah, so what the report talks about, is a young engineer in India. She's from Bangalore, who has developed this bot. Her name is Niveda, and she's developed this trash boat, which Claude talks about, and he says this is a product of our very own flesh and blood, made in India. But in Goa, 3 of our decision-making people from the government are flying to Sweden this week to negotiate an expensive new plant.
So this bot will actually segregate garbage?
Yes, it does. And the irony of it is the Norwegian Minister of Trade and Industry has awarded the Bangalore 24-year-old Niveda earlier this month for coming up with an identical waste management solution. And it costs only a few lakhs,
chances
not crores.
That technology made within India, within Asia, in the region are going to be cheaper, more effective, more relevant. This
Absolutely.
is exactly the idea that Sam Pitroda had when he said that we shouldn't go in for Alcatel French telephone exchanges. We should build our own exchanges.
That's true.
Which work in local conditions.
So, and to give you a little more detail on that story, I'm now reading from the Times of India reporter. Their reporter is with Lobo in Oslo. So he says the Goa will have to construct waste recycling plant, construction waste recycling plant with Irish technology. So Lobo said establishing a construction and demolition waste recycling plant will not only help clear construction debris, but will also help recycle stone aggregates and sand. So this is now really, big money talking, and one wonders how they'll work, because from our past,
all these things work in theory, but in practice there are huge economic cost involved, and there is a question of how much energy you are using to claim how much. So we always say that plastics can be used for roads and all, but is it really viable? I think there's really no option to consuming less, particularly of these hazardous products in that sense. Shifting to another issue, Devika, just by the way, I saw this live press conference by the Goa Forward President Vijay Sardesai on YouTube and on other channels. So I thought it was interesting that politicians also now are broadcasting.
Let me tell you, Goa Forward is very, very active on Facebook.
I see.
And I get a message occasionally saying that watch right now, Vijay Sardesai live on Facebook. They
Yeah,
use Facebook quite a lot, which is quite
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of New Year, we intend to have a good conclave, which will actually chart the way forward and bring about a very elaborative meaning to the Goa model of development. आज गोंयांत आमी पळयतात की नोव्हेंबर जावपाक पावला, नोव्हेंबराचे सुरवातीक पसून शेकां अलॉटमेंट अजून जावना. सो आमचो टुरिजम मॉडेल खंय वता, आमी कोणाच्या मॉडेलाचेर आमी फुडें वतात, आनी दर्या आमी खंयच्याच मॉडेलाचेर वचना आनी आमचोच एक नवो गोवा मॉडेल ऑफ डेव्हलपमेंट म्हणून आमी करतात. जाल्यार तो मॉडेल कितें, ताजो अर्थ कितें, काय ओगीच राम भरोसे चलपाचें आतां जे भशेन चल्ला ते भशेन. सो हाजेर एक सारको एकेडमीक एक्सरसायज जावपाची गरज आहा. राजकारणी म्हणून आमचें एक कर्तव्य जाता की वी शूड डू आवर बीट. फक्त ओपोज करपाक आमी ना. वी आर अ प्रोएक्टिव्ह पार्टी. वी आर अ पार्टी विच इज नॉट डिसरप्टिव्ह. आमी ओपोज फॉर द सेक ऑफ ओपोज आमी करपी न्ही. वी वॉन्ट टू कॉन्ट्रिब्यूट एंड show the way forward. That is what the people expect us to do. What we see in Goa today is a policy paralysis. आता काल नावशेचे मरिनाचेर कितें जालें की द हियरिंग इज पोस्टपोन्ड. सो हियरिंग पोस्टपोन जावन इश्यू सॉल्व जालो म्हळ्यार मरिना घालता तोय गॅसार उरलो आनी मरिना ओपोज करता तेय गॅसार उरले. म्हळ्यार आयचें मरण फाल्यां इतलेंच. So this is symptomatic of policy paralysis that prevails in Goa.
And so are the citizens using Facebook, because I came across this movie which was circulated widely on different social networks, and it's basically can we say one of these musical comments on the state of affairs in Goa. So there's someone called he goes by the unusual name of Frid's Love or something, and his Konkani song is Kaun Jawabdar, who's responsible. So his argument is that who's responsible for the state of affairs in Goa, and it's quite a critical song, I must say. While the mainstream media is quite gentle, mostly excepting the smaller papers about the politicians, there's a lot of irritation, anger about systems that don't work, about efficiency which is not delivered.
Okay, this is a Konkani song.
Yeah, and he's arguing that while all these problems are going on, we've elected politicians to look after our rights, but while these things were going on, we people kept quiet. So that's his argument. So who's responsible? Kaun Jawabdar, as he says.
Yeah. So now, Frederick, there's this major report that has come out from the international organization, Climate Central, and they talk of huge areas across the country and elsewhere in South Asia will go underwater in a while. So the report says by 2050 major parts of Tiswadi and Bardes talukas will experience floods, while the historic Pont de Linhares causeway, that's the one that goes to Ribandar, will be totally underwater. And the submerged will be, all these areas will be, similarly Vanshi and Diwar islands are estimated to be submerged entirely by 2100, while the nearby island of Shorao may also see water entering the homes. And
this is Gauri Malkanekar in the Times of
India. Yes, but this is a general report.
Which
everybody has this report. So 36 million Indians at flood risk by 2050 itself. Very serious.
And for a change, rather than reporting weather as one incident here and one extreme weather event here, I think what is a long-term issue, because this has been said for a long time. We know that Goa is under pressure, particularly because a lot of areas lie under these low-lying kind of areas. And it's not totally unbelievable, because when if a bund breaks, you already see the flooding that happens. When we were youngsters going to college in the 80s, before Victoria came on the scenes and Nandakumar Kamath and all of them got together to repair the bunds, we had to actually wade through water on the Santa Cruz main road, while going from Panjim to Bamboli, where the Goa University was then located. And similarly, the fact that ferry services to Diwar and Shorao were suspended for 1 or 2 or 3 days recently, it's quite scary. I mean, what do you do if you live on the island? What do you do?
Absolutely, yeah. So I just wanted to refer a bit today to a very interesting interview I saw in Navin Times. It is with the governor Mridula Sinha, who has been transferred. She's actually retired, I believe. She's not transferred to any. So we are going to get Malik, who is now currently the governor of Jammu and Kashmir. And one of the questions, in fact, the interviewer was extremely sort of soft on her. He didn't ask her any tough questions. One can understand being the Navin Times, but one of the questions was she's been the governor for a substantial period, etc. What did she think of the former Chief Minister Manor Parrikar? And then she goes into this long explanation about her Mercedes car. If you recall, she bought this extremely expensive Mercedes.
Costing a crore or something like that?
No, it was, I think, around 56 lakhs, if I'm not mistaken. I had done a story about her, being one of the first governors to set up a cowshed in Raj Bhavan. And on the other side, she had asked for this really expensive Mercedes.
I remember that story.
Yes, and she went into this long explanation saying that it was not her actually, but the staff of Raj Bhavan who requisitioned for the car. And Parrikar was very sort of kind in sanctioning it. But he said that she should, the Raj Bhavan should also get rid of the older Mercedes to make way for this one. I don't know what this whole argument was about, but it's really...
The older Mercedes is the one which comes down from Vassallo Silva's
Exactly.
time?
In fact, they should have kept that Mercedes because it's an antique in a way. It has a lot of...
And it used to run, not till very recently.
It used to run for a long time. I mean, they keep buying newer and newer cars without knowing the value of the old ones. And but her whole interview dwells more on her relationship with the former chief minister, with the current chief minister. Mridula Sinha played a extremely sort of political role, I would think. Though governors are not supposed to be. She called in the BJP to form the government when they didn't have the numbers, rather than call the single largest party, which was the Congress. And now she's being retired.
We are following the policy of don't talk ill of the departed, I guess.
Yes.
So, but having said that, Goa has had a series of good, bad and indifferent governors.
Absolutely.
We may not talk about the bad and the indifferent, but who in your mind are the best or the most noteworthy?
The one previous to her, I don't remember his name, but I do recall, I think he was from the northeast, but I felt that he was...
Jamir, S.C. Jamir?
Not Jamir.
After
Jamir. He was, I think, in Rajiv Gandhi's security detail, if I'm not mistaken.
Special Protection Group.
Yes. He started the SGP, the special SPG, I think. It's SPG. But what I liked about him is because I saw him several times, even in the film festival, he was just walking very casually around with his wife. There was no security. Really? Yes, there was no security detail. And also he was very attentive when he got a call, say from people who had some complaints about environment, this, that, the other. And he also kept the Raj Bhavan open, very much open for the Lit Fest. And there were two...
he brought the poets there.
Yes, exactly. There were 2-3 sessions. So, I thought he was sort of far more open than other governors had been.
You remember Gopal Ramanujan? He was, if I'm getting the name right, he was a Gandhian who came about during one of the Janata Dal or whatever governments, or maybe during VP Singh's government. And he was a real Gandhian, and even at his, functions, he would organize only veg, is the kind of food, and very simple veg food, and all the journalists would grumble because that. This guy, I really appreciate that kind of thing. Although the governor's post is an anachronism in today's day and age, with it's a colonial kind of legacy. But still, I appreciated him. Then I also remembered JFR Jacob, the former Jewish governor who was the hero of the Bangladesh war.
That's true.
And he was an environmentalist at heart, and till
He was from the army, right?
yeah,
He was
yeah,
retired
yeah,
general.
retired
Yeah.
lieutenant general or I don't know what.
Yeah.
And he was quite an environmentalist. He made the Mahaday sanctuary and things like that. And even afterwards, when I ran into him by email, he said, "Oh, you're a journalist from Goa. You would send me mail. You all must do something to protect Mahaday and avoid, make sure these interests don't take it over." And those kind of things. So there have been quite a few. I think we had Satarawala, who had his heart in conservation.
Right.
Then of course Gopal Singh came, and there were a few controversies about him, but he set up the university, and while everyone was dithering about what to do, he went ahead and did it. And so we've had good, bad and indifferent. We won't talk about the later two, but of course Bhanu Prakash Singh was the limit, who decided that he didn't want Willie to continue as the chief minister.
He was very political. He was very political.
And then he got sacked for it.
True, that's true. Yeah.
Anyway.
So now let me just do one political story and this little thing that's been going on after the recent Maharashtra elections. You have everybody sort of jumping the thing. Vijay slams Congress leadership, and he says defectors will face the brunt. Now there's been this. Yes, that's what he's talking about. But to defeat the defectors, you need the right type of leader who can awaken the sentiments of the people in Goa. He says Congress unfortunately doesn't have anyone like Sharad Pawar. And so there was this complete backlash against Vijay, and you had one from Girish who said 10 Congress rebels will face the wrath of the people, but so will Vijay. So for betraying the electoral verdict or whatever. So, and you even had the 10 Congress defectors, I mean at least some of them reacting, and they said that Vijay has no right to talk on defection. Wilfred and Clafasio both made the statement. But you know what, politics is so sort of, it has these migratory kind of birds, you never know which side they are on. And then there was this I thought this very, very interesting picture which we will put up for you of Churchill, Alamau, headed to Baramati to meet Sharad Pawar. Churchill has been all these months, telling the BJP that he just loved to be part of the government. But now that Sharad Pawar is back in action, you have Churchill, his daughter, and his nephew headed to Baramati to wish Sharad Pawar all the best and to say that NCP will be revived, etc., etc.
A very quick look at one or two stories. This one is not very new. It's a bit old. There was a foreign tourist who was found dead in Kalangut, and they were wondering what her identity was. I thought it's old, but it's important to note. Finally, the British papers are saying that she had been left homeless and stranded in Goa because of a 2-year jail term. After a 2-year jail term, and some trial was going on, so she couldn't leave.
But her jail term was in Mumbai, if I'm not mistaken,
Mumbai,
not in Goa. She was in jail in Mumbai.
So apparently she and some 3 other Brits were trying to smuggle.
Was it in Kolkata?
Were trying to smuggle, it's somewhere here. They were trying to smuggle in Baikala's women jail.
Okay.
They were trying to smuggle out some Sri Lankans into Britain. So they got arrested for that, and she was very depressed because she couldn't leave the country, and also she finally committed suicide at Kalangut. I mean, whatever her failings may have been, it's quite a tragic story in that sense. Another short notice here. The government has announced that it's going to tighten GST enforcement from November 1 because their GST collections are going down. In that sense. And even since GST was passed, it seems like a very difficult and complex law. So neither is it cheap nor is it easy to file. So they are complaining now that even in Goa, the actual compliance rate is declining and things like that. Finally, one small, very tiny point. One of our friends, Dada Diraj, who is part of this program, he edits our program. He's actually made this small Konkani film called The Scanner, and it talks about men staring at women and the problems it creates. It's a 15 or 16 minute feature film that he has created.
So just to end on a lighter note, Frederick, I'd like to point to a very amusing story I saw in the Goan. It talks of the Anjuna flea market, which has just restarted, and suddenly the police decided to set up a desk at the Anjuna flea market, and it caused quite a bit of a stir when they said that they needed to check the passports of foreigners, and so they set up this verification desk. And the people who run the flea market and the shops and etc., they were a bit sort of out of this with it. But however, locals in the know inform that a lot of illegal activities also take place in the market, and the police presence is thus welcome.
Mixed feelings, because
story.
I don't know, policing is necessary, but it has to be done very subtly, like it's done abroad. Now, if there's any crime,
Yeah.
the police will reach there in 1 or 2 minutes. You don't know where they've come from.
That's
And
true.
I mean, if you sit out there, it's going to not be very welcome. But having said that, the clock reminds us that we've run out of time. So thank you, viewers, and we will definitely be back in 1 week from now. Thanks so much.
Thank you for watching.